Before we get into this clip, I want you to consider a hypothetical scenario for a moment. Picture the reaction if Barack Obama had filed a lawsuit against his own administration, only to later settle that dispute and end up creating a massive taxpayer-funded compensation program worth nearly $1.8 billion. Now imagine that money was being directed toward political allies and individuals who claimed they were targeted while acting in support of a controversial political cause. Be honest. Do you think conservatives and the MAGA movement would simply shrug their shoulders and move on? Or would there be wall-to-wall outrage, demands for investigations, and nonstop media coverage? That's exactly why this exchange is so revealing. In the clip you're about to see, Isaiah Martin presents a comparison that puts supporters of Donald Trump in a very uncomfortable position. Rather than debating personalities, he forces the conversation onto a simple question of standards. Would people react the same way if the political roles were reversed? It's a question that cuts right to the heart of the debate. And as you'll see, it exposes what many critics argue is a glaring double standard when it comes to defending Donald Trump. Take a look at the full exchange, and afterward, I'll break down the key moment that stood out to me and explain why Isaiah's argument put so much pressure on the other side of the panel. Let's get into it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Dean in for Abby Phillip today, and we're still 3 months from the dog days of summer. But for Donald Trump's political standing, it's hot as hell already. For the past 3 months, the president launched a war that's still going without an obvious end at this moment, sending gas prices through the roof. No state has had less than $4 a gallon 48 hours ago. Inflation is rising. Mortgage rates rose to the highest they've been in 9 months. Bond yields are the highest since before the financial crisis, and his poll numbers keep crashing. But all the president can seem to talk about over and over are the things like his arch, the reflecting pool, his marble walkway, and the ballroom, which he gave a tour of this week.
This is a gift to the United States of America. And more than a gift, it's going to be one of the most beautiful buildings that's ever been built in the country or in Washington, D.C. This is not for me. This is my gift to the United States of America.
When it comes to those gas prices mentioned, he doesn't think much of them.
This is peanuts, and I appreciate everybody putting up with it for a little while. It won't be much longer.
And this week introduced a new twist to the outrage. Trump defended a $1.8 billion slush fund with taxpayer money to compensate his allies that he claims were wrong. And that includes January 6th rioters. And if that's not enough, part of that deal forbids the IRS from forever investigating him or his family's taxes. Even conservative columnist Jonah Goldberg raised the idea of impeachment, saying by their definition, the founding fathers would have gotten rid of Trump long ago. I want to welcome everyone to the table. Thanks so much for being here, guys. It's interesting. We heard from Trump on Truth Social, where he was kind of congratulating himself. He said that he gave up a lot of money in allowing the just announced anti-weaponization fund to go forward. I could have settled my case, including the illegal release of my tax returns and the equally illegal break-in of Mar-a-Lago, for an absolute fortune. Instead, I am helping others who were so badly abused by an evil, corrupt, and weaponized Biden administration receive, at long last, justice. Alyssa, I'll start first with you. The president not backing down from this, and it seems like he's living in this reality right now, whereas there's the other reality for millions of Americans who are looking at this weekend with really high gas prices, really high grocery prices. The list can go on.
Well, and let's just look back to what started this. The president's tax returns were leaked. That shouldn't have happened. That was wrong. That was unethical. The gentleman who did that is serving 5 years in jail. It's not like there weren't consequences for those actions. But now this is money that was congressionally appropriated to the Internal Revenue Service that is going to be used for this, what I would say amounts to a slush fund, to go out to people who feel like they were victims of political weaponization. And that could include people who may have assaulted police officers, destroyed property at the Capitol. And I'd also remind you, those people, most of them already received blanket pardons from the president or commutations of their sentences. So many of these also went on to commit other crimes down the road. So this just comes at a moment when there are so many glaring signs of things the president should be focusing on, that the American people want him to focus on, and it feels deeply out of touch. I am still incredibly overly bullish that this is never actually going to come to fruition. The fund itself. Between Congress, this is just blatantly illegal. This has to go through a congressional appropriation. And if Congress doesn't find a way to block it, then I do think the courts will step in. We've seen him do it with Doge, with other times that funds were appropriated for something different and then redirected. So we'll see if it ever comes to life.
Yeah. I mean, I would push back on that a little bit. What you call the slush fund, I find to call the anti-weaponization fund. And I'm sure on both sides of the aisle, we all have friends whose lives have been absolutely ruined, whether they were innocent. And you said that this is going to people who assaulted police officers on January 6th. It could, but the truth is we don't know where this money's going yet. And I feel like we're always prematurely just very negative when it comes to anything that President Trump wants to do. But I view this as something very altruistic. Trump did not take the money and put it in his pocket like he could have, and like most people probably would have done. And instead, he wants to help those people who were absolutely destroyed by the weaponization of the government. I have friends who declared bankruptcy over proving they're innocent, that spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, some millions, to avoid spending time in jail, and they don't get that money back. Why can't we help those people?
Well, therein lies the root of the problem. You just said the very simple fact that we're not going to know exactly who gets this money. I know that there was this testimony inside of the United States Congress in which they said that there's really no rules behind what's going to happen. So I think that it's absolutely absurd that there's going to be a fund that's $1.8 billion. We don't know where the money's going to go through.
Yes.
And honestly, we don't know if we'll ever know who the money's going to go to. You don't think that that's absurd, that
like
the President of the United States can create a fund and divvy payments to people and we don't know who the money goes to?
I mean, we know that it's going to people who have been weaponized by the government. Now, whether that goes to, like you said, January 6th protesters or people like James Comey, who I find is guilty, we don't know yet. So why don't we wait and see before we are outrageous?
Going to give James Comey a payout for wrongful prosecution as they're trying to prosecute him. That doesn't seem like.
But that is the root of the root of the issue.
Yeah, but
the root of the issue is that we will never know.
People in this country who have been wronged by the law have already
that's what they said.
Have legal pathways to seek justice for that. And you know, what you said, Trump could have just taken the money. No, he can't just take the money because we live in a. Yes, because I want
to ask this question because Emily, you were saying Trump didn't benefit. What about this piece, this other piece,
settlement with himself
about the
that he negotiated with himself?
Settle that.
He is the government.
But I want to ask about the IRS not being able to prosecute him or his family over taxes forever. What do you think about that?
Obviously, optically, it looks horrendous. I think anybody can.
Because it is horrendous.
Anyone can admit that. But there's also an unprecedented amount of persecution when it comes to the Trump and the Trump family. There has never been a president that has been persecuted as much as Donald Trump, whether it's illegally releasing his IRS, which I'm happy he's sitting 5 years in jail because that would never be tolerated under anyone else. But it's just the target on President Trump. Personally, it's outrageous.
Jeff Bezos also had his tax returns illegally released.
And that's
so should he be entitled to $2 billion? Where does this stop?
If he wants to sue, he absolutely has the right to.
So are we going to say that for every single person that they should all be entitled to $2 billion?
But I also think,
but none of them or the president of the United States can negotiate with themselves.
But them and the president, to me, have equal treatment. If Bezos wants
equal
to sue,
treatment, it's the president of the United States that's negotiating his own settlement.
Well, and let's keep in mind, guys,
there
is in this moment in the country, people are struggling. There is real financial and economic hardship right now. People's healthcare costs are going up. Inflation, gas prices are between $5 and $6 a gallon. Is this the best use of government resources? I don't know any conservative who could argue that this is how we should be using this money.
And here's the context. This is a pattern of the President of the United States pilfering from the national coffers to serve his own political and personal ends. We have the Board of Peace, billions of dollars of taxpayer money without any congressional authorization or oversight. You know, you've got all of the stock trades that he's made, $750 million worth of stock trades on issues that he's adjudicating. This is a level of self-dealing and corruption that no one has seen before, and you have to view this slush fund in that context because
if there was ever,
it's obvious that he's doing it for political reasons and that the lawsuit against the IRS was a sham lawsuit that was never moving forward anyway.
I'm just going to say
it was just a thinly veiled excuse to pay off his own political
If President
benefactors.
Obama sued his own Department his own IRS and settled with himself, I guarantee you that you and every conservative on Fox would be running around screaming for impeachment. You guys would be trying to throw him in alligator Alcatraz.
Actually, one thing I will
That's
pat
what you would
myself
want.
on the back for is I know bipartisanly when something is wrong or not. I'm not the person that's like, oh, every Democrat's wrong and every Republican's right. That's something that you cannot
And a president
generalize.
negotiating
If that
with
happened
himself?
to Obama, by the way, anyone who's wronged, the law is the same, whether you're the president or not.
But
If
he's the
somebody
one that's
did leak
negotiating the
Obama's
settlement.
Why can't we?
He's
should
negotiating with himself.
we
No one
could
else has that
simply-
ability. You cannot compare him to other billionaires, to other people, to other
And other
people on
presidents
earth,
who have not
because
been as
he's the one that
persecuted as Donald
dictates
Trump.
the terms
You're right.
of his own
This never
settlement.
happened before.
If we could just get a commitment from the administration that not a single dollar would go to somebody who assaulted a police officer,
I agree
we
with
could
you.
begin a conversation. Maybe I still wouldn't support it, but some Republicans in the Senate might. But we couldn't even get that from the Deputy Attorney General,
Yeah,
a commitment
he
that
did not
leaders
get
of the
there.
Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers might not get $1 million settlements to then what, fund domestic terrorism?
And then, Alyssa, we also won't get the names of the people at all.
Correct.
So we'll never be able to verify anything.
There's not a lot of transparency.
There's a lot of questions around this, and we're going to talk about as we come back from the ballroom to the slush fund.
Now that we've watched the entire exchange, I think the most important takeaway isn't even the debate over the fund itself. It's the question Isaiah Martin raised and the position it puts Trump defenders in. Emily Austin often finds herself defending Donald Trump regardless of the controversy involved, and that's exactly why Isaiah's comparison was so effective. He shifted the conversation away from partisan talking points and toward something much harder to answer. Would conservatives react the same way if a Democratic president were doing this? That's the question that changes everything. Because let's be honest, American politics has never operated on a standard where people ignore actions simply because they're politically inconvenient. We've seen political controversies explode over far smaller issues. We've seen endless outrage cycles, investigations, and media firestorms over matters that weren't nearly as consequential as the one being discussed here. And that's why Isaiah's Obama comparison landed the way it did. Think about it. Barack Obama has been out of office for years, yet there are still political commentators and activists who bring him up regularly when discussing current events. His presidency continues to be scrutinized long after it ended. So the idea that many of these same voices would remain calm and unbothered if an Obama administration had been connected to a nearly $1.8 billion fund benefiting political allies is a claim that a lot of people are going to find difficult to believe. That's what made the exchange so revealing. The discussion wasn't really about whether people support Trump or oppose Trump. It was about consistency. It was about whether the standards being applied today would remain the same if the names and political parties were reversed. And from my perspective, that's where Isaiah Martin scored his strongest point. He forced the conversation into a hypothetical that many Trump supporters would rather avoid, because it puts the spotlight directly on the issue of double standards. Now, was this the most explosive debate we've ever seen? No, there wasn't a lot of shouting or chaos. But sometimes the most effective arguments aren't the loudest ones. Sometimes they're the ones built around a simple question that nobody can answer without exposing a contradiction. That's why this moment stood out to me, and that's why I think it resonated with so many viewers. Let me know what you think. Was Isaiah's comparison fair? Do you think the reaction would be different if the political parties were reversed? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it. It helps the channel reach more people and keeps these conversations going. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next.